If I was your best friend, I'd want you around me all the time. Can I be your best friend if you promise that you'll be mine?
Yeah,
Oh my
smoking
God.
us out. Father.
All right. Well, welcome back, folks, to another Friends to Fiance podcast.
Yeah.
We are just elated to have you. Thank you for receiving us. Thank you just for just rocking with us. It's been amazing. It's been a lot of fun. And today, before we get into it, I am Jasmine Jane, and this is
Jordan Tarzan.
Yes. And today we're just gonna talk. This is primarily gonna be about you, because you're the one that proposed. So a lot of people want to know the mindset behind it. So, let's get into it.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't him.
It was a clone.
Oh my God. Okay.
It's so trapped. Help me. I'm just playing.
First question I have for you is, when did marriage become a thought for you?
It was never like, I was never against it. So it was always like a lingering thing. It's just maybe I was younger and didn't really fully think about it too much. But primarily when God kind of showed me that you can find your soulmate within a friendship, that's when it became more of a reality. And that's when I really started to kind of like set my boundaries up to prepare myself for that. Because the thing that I think about is, if anything else takes preparation, right? Let's say when you want to go on a road trip, it takes preparation. A vacation, it takes preparation. Waking up in the morning, getting prepared for your day to go out to work, or whatever it is that you do. All these things take preparation. A lot of times we don't think about the preparation that it takes to become, nor attract, nor maintain a soulmate. So for me, I just began that preparation. So it became a real thing when God kind of like laid that on my heart.
So what did preparing look like for you?
Well, we talked about it in our last episode, creating boundaries. What's not sexy to nobody.
Yeah, no, it's not.
It doesn't. Yeah, it's
doesn't
not
sound
sexy.
Good.
It doesn't sound good. There's actually a scripture that says, no discipline feels good in the moment, but let its finish it work and it will produce a good harvest. So for me, I just began that work. And what those boundaries really looked like was, first, you know how like a lot of times girls be like, or their parents or people will tell the women like, hey, you're worth more. Don't just be giving your body, you're worth more. I first started having that mentality about myself, of like, hey, like I'm worth more than just giving my body to different people. And although, I experienced giving my body to different people, I realized that my value was decreasing as I freely gave myself out.
That's so good.
And one thing that I thought about was, well, as I'm giving myself out, my soulmate, is the one who is losing out, because all these other people that I'm giving myself to actually isn't my wife. And I started to look at it like I'm taking something that wasn't mine. So I'll give you an example. Like, I felt like when I was creating these boundaries but still giving in at different times, I started to view it as I'm taking a woman that God didn't give me for myself. So I started to look at it like
no, that's good. I can relate to that. For me, obviously in the past I had given myself away, to not too many people, but a point of contention when I was in a relationship was that. And I was always reluctant because I was like, why do you deserve this level of access to me? What makes you so special in the boyfriend, girlfriend realm, however you want to label it?
Yeah.
What makes you so special that you deserve that level of access to me. So I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah. I just started looking at it like I was taking something that wasn't mine, honestly.
Yeah, because it doesn't belong to you. And that's how I feel about myself too. Like why do you feel like you just deserve it? Like this, I'm not yours. Like when you are somebody's girlfriend or somebody's boyfriend, there is not to look as people as property, but like as my husband, like, okay, no, my body is not my own, but you have ownership rights. Right? And so it's like, why do people feel like they are entitled to those ownership rights under the boyfriend or girlfriend label?
I think the better question is, why do we give people those ownership rights?
Yeah.
That's the better question.
That's the better question.
Yeah, why do we give people those ownership rights? But I felt like I was stealing from God. Because that's how serious I was about like really walking in this. You know, I kind of felt like, well, I really wanted this for me. And if there's anybody that has ever got to the point of anything in their life where they really wanted something for themselves, they started to dive deeper into the details of what it took to achieve it. And just kind of blocked out the distractions. And so that's what I started to do. And it was a process. It was a intense process, right? Because different people start dissing you.
Yeah.
Different people, and I don't mean dissing you in like necessarily the obvious ways, but it's like the subtle ways. Like, you know, I can't.
Different.
Right. Yeah. I can't get what I want from you. So I'm you know, going to make up a reason as to why we're going our separate ways, or why I'm less engaging, or why. And, you know, you mentioned the whole boyfriend and girlfriend thing, but again, it's like falling into that imagination, falling into that euphoria, falling into that bliss that we have in our mindset that we've become addicted to, right? There's this ingredient that the nutritionist was talking to us about, MSG, and how MSG is put into different foods to increase the taste of it. But it doesn't increase the healthiness of it. It increases the taste of the unhealthy thing. And a lot of times that's what that euphoria or that lust or that imagination does. It's like, it's like mental MSG, where it's like these things that induce higher endorphins, but don't bring us closer to destiny. You know, it actually adds to our destruction. And so for me, one thing I realized is when people couldn't get their endorphins off of me, right, their reaction to me was a little bit different as well. So those boundaries kind of came, the reality of me creating those boundaries came with hurt as well. You know, so that was a pretty tough thing to kind of deal with throughout that time. But, you know, that's just what it looked like, really. And just I didn't do a lot of pillow talking with women, like on the phone all night. Like, I made sure that a lot of my interactions was platonic. And, you know, fellas, let me tell you, and ladies out there, let me tell you too, even throughout this time of me building these boundaries, there was still times that I ended up falling short as an individual, like, and giving into one of those moments of lust. However, one thing I will point out is that I didn't fool myself, right? And what I mean by I didn't fool myself was I wasn't lying to myself when I wasn't leading people on, right? When it happened under the understanding that I know that he slipped up when we did this. Like, they knew that, right? It wasn't this, oh, I got a connection with you and I'm just so in bliss with you, or, oh, this emotional thing or whatever. Like, no, it was like, oh, a heat of the moment kind of scenario situation that really was avoided a lot of times. But on the times where in the midst of me building my boundaries, that where those cracks were is where it still happened, you know? However, I just want to make sure that it's clear that it's not about you being perfect, and it's not about you failing. It's about you not staying down. It's about your bounce back game. It's about the fact that you stay focused on who you're looking to become, what you're looking to obtain, and what you're looking to achieve. So I just want to make sure I point that out, because I don't want to make it seem like, oh, I just created these boundaries and it was hard, but, you know, I did it and it was all good. Like, no, because it is a process, you know, and you have to make sure that you embrace God's grace within that process to let the process finish its work, you know?
No, that's good. That's good. So a part of the becoming was the boundaries, even in you falling short. You know, you always reference just, how strong is your bounce back game. Um, so in that, obviously you said like, there was preparation behind it, but how did you come to the final decision of proposal, and like what served as your confirmation, if anything?
I was honestly paying attention to, because I was so on this friend and fiance, like this boundary thing. I was paying a lot of attention to how people moved. So like it was kind of like experimental for me as well, because I was able to watch how different women would respond to me with walking in this new light that I was walking in. So women that I knew from the past, I remember it was this one chick, right? And we were talking, we were speaking to each other outside, and she kind of like tried me a little bit. And she was like, I don't remember how she kind of just was like trying me, like coming on to me basically, and then I told her, I was like, I'm saving myself. I was like, I'm not on that kind of time no more. And it blew her mind so much. She was looking at me, she was like, yo, stop playing with me right now, because you really tripping me out. Like she was looking at me like I was really like she was so much in shock, so much in shock. It weirded her out so much that it surprised me how much it weirded her out. And I don't know why it did so much. Maybe because we've known each other for years and didn't see each other for years, and then we were outside talking and that gave it a reaction. But because that was her reaction, it caused me to digress. And I was like, kind of like soothe her. I'm like, nah, you know what I'm saying? It ain't that deep, but I'm just saying, like, I am working on myself, like trying to ease the moment for her, but it was like an experience. It was these new experiences that I didn't experience when I first started that walk. And so it was like that right there. It's just weird. It's like this other chick, she was like, she like responded in a way as like her conviction start coming out herself, like when she tried me, it was like, because mind you guys, like I was just, I was young, I was ambitious, entrepreneur, a hip-hop artist, like, so I was in the mix. So when people experienced me from a different light, when they were linking up with me or hanging out with me with knowing a certain kind of person,
it was like, who is this?
Yeah. And it was such a night and day kind of thing.
Yeah.
That a lot of people just, it was a very big difference. It was a very big difference. Like I know for you specifically though, you didn't, like, your transition of creating stronger boundaries wasn't super big because you already had a lot of boundaries.
That
right?
was me. I was already a very guarded person.
Oh yeah, guarded.
And that's
person.
what I realized. I was always already a very guarded person. So in that aspect, it was, I still had I already had the mindset of like, you don't deserve this, So that kind of wasn't my thorn. If anything, it was relinquishing the trust for me.
So what do you mean, like? Your challenge was relinquishing trust to people?
Like when you talk about like in that regard, like sex, you know what I'm saying? Like how females would try you and kind of how you would fall short. Like that wasn't a point of contention for me. It was because I was already so heavily guarded. It that wasn't, I guess you can say, like, it unintentionally, like I was already prepared in that way.
For sure. But as you got older, when you did create these thicker boundaries, when you kind of started walking in your friend and fiance, that wasn't a dramatic change.
It wasn't no, because God literally incubated me. Like, yeah. So there was no opportunity for me to really even, I guess, enforce something because I was already by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dig that.
Yeah.
However, though, on the flip side of it, though, is that I just want to point out that, like, you didn't choose to become the person that wanted to attract a lot of attention either.
No,
you could have been that. You could,
I could have been that. I was already very modest, and I believe again that was like one of the ways that God protected me. Because as I got older, I didn't grow up with a lot of affirmation, you know? And so if any of y'all have ever been in an environment where you don't, but I don't want to say you don't belong, but you stick out, right? And so a lot of times I found myself seeking for belonging, seeking for acceptance, seeking for relatability, but I'm the only Black student in an all-white classroom.
Yeah.
So growing up, that was kind of like, you know, how I lived my life. And so when it came to being isolated, you know, in that particular time frame, I was like, it wasn't an unfamiliar space. It was like, here we are, it's just me again. And so
hey God, it's me again.
yeah, literally, I was like, hey, it's me again. And I wasn't, having male friends wasn't abnormal to me, so I already knew how to encounter them. And because I like how, as we spoke before, you know, having male friends who kind of wanted more out of you, even if that wasn't that intent, right? The flip side to this level of vulnerability and authenticity and transparency that you develop in a friendship, you know, some of you will have friends of the opposite sex that may want to explore that, and unfortunately I didn't feel that way all the time. You know, but I like to circle back to what you said, like I was very modest, and again, I believe that was God's protection, because had I been made fully aware of who I am and what I am, I would have been a problem for myself, hands down. Like with the track that I was already on, yeah, I would have been a problem for myself. So in hindsight 2020, and I say this all the time, like, you know, you saved me even when I wasn't looking to be saved. So from myself in that regard. You know,
don't save her. She don't wanna be saved.
When we talk about pride and humility, but to go back to it, so yeah, so how did you come to the final decision?
What it really was different things aligning, right? Like as I began to become this soulmate, like that God was building me by me obtaining attributes of his character, I began to be able to identify those similar attributes. And what those attributes in me did was propel the ones who the attributes wasn't alike, like who couldn't relate to those attributes or who didn't connect with those, and it began to attract the ones that could. And what I found was the more I became this man, the more I became walking in these boundaries.
Your development served as a repellent.
For sure, for a lot of people, but the more aligned you and I became. So for me, it wasn't even like, yo, well, what was the final straw? What was the final decision? It was these different things that just kept happening. And it was like, yo, we were able to serve effectively throughout all of these different times. Like I can list all these different things. We were able to make money throughout these different times. We were able to come up with all this perspective and healing within our relationships with our family members. However, I was doing these same things with other friends as well. So if I just tried to create a list of these different things alone, right? These lists are important, but create a list of these things alone, more people would match up to that criteria.
Right.
What it really was the more I became, the more we became. And with that, over time, it just kept bringing like this triangle until God really revealed to me. And it wasn't even like he said, like, to my recollection, like, oh, she's your wife. It was literally just like, propose to Jazz.
And that's all he said.
I mean, that's all that my recollection of the impression can remember. And what made me already all right with it was because I already knew the person you was. You know, I already appreciated and valued the person that you was on all aspects. So it wasn't like this far-fetched thing where it was like, oh, propose to her. And I'm like, wait, what? Why? What about this? No, I knew exactly why the impression was that, you know, and it was because of one, because of what it was, because what God designed. But other than that, it was because of what you were becoming, what you became, because of your submission to God. And that's why, and we're going to go into it more, but that's why when I did propose to you, there was a painting that I got for her, and it said, the best thing I love about you is the Jesus in you. And it was literally within her becoming and my becoming that we became one. It really wasn't me like plotting. It wasn't me planning. It wasn't me like sneaking and geeking. Like it wasn't, it was really, I was fully aware of the different characteristics of the different people around me. It wasn't a shock.
It was a shock to me and everybody else, but
right. Well, specifically to you, for sure.
No, for sure. Yeah.
It was a shock, but for me, it wasn't at all. I was already walking in alignment, and there were many other things prior to that that God was telling me to do. That I was getting this impression from God to do, and then great things came out of it. So when I got that impression, it wasn't different than the other impressions that he gave me.
Because you were already walking in obedience.
Facts.
Got it.
Facts.
Got it.
So it wasn't big for me at all whatsoever. For you, and I know time was moving fast for you because you had a lot going on, school, serving, going back and forth between, Charlotte and South Carolina. But during that time, when you had those boundaries up, I remember us having a conversation about you saying like you turning different guys down, right? Or not responding to them, or not engaging with them when they did begin to start reaching out. Do you remember like the thing that made you not lean into those invitations at the time? Such a crazy time, so it's easy for you not to remember.
It is, because I barely remember some things from yesterday. But I really think it just was where I was with God. Like when you connect with people on just a very much humanistic sense, like those are acceptable. But it's something different when it's spirit to spirit. Yeah. And because I was so in tune and I was so fixated and so focused on the spiritual realm, I was not interested in the humanistic aspect. Yeah. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's good.
Like that space altogether after, and for those of y'all who watched the previous podcast, you'll hear where we referenced the first time we met was my first time going to Elevation. Yeah. And that kind of was like where I started reestablishing my walk. And I kind of just looked at it like, oh wow, like this is dope, because here it's me and my relationship with God and everybody else is my support system. Yeah. And I never had experienced that before. But yeah, during that time I was just really just after that encounter, I was just focused on God. And I didn't have time for a man. Like I said, I was a full-time cadet, commissioning in the as an Army officer. Shout out to my Army folk who I was getting my master's, had a full-time job, and I had a plan to move to Chicago. Yeah. I finished my master's in a year and a half, so that the remaining 6 months I had a internship that was extended into a job offer at the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago. I had a roommate. I was already assigned to an Army unit. So like I had literally facilitated this plan from the time that I began my master's. Spent spring break, spent summers, all of that in Chicago.
And the thing I want to point out is the fact that she was doing those things. For me, I was working on music. I was in multiple businesses and trying to succeed in that. I was under the apprenticeship of a business owner. I was at different times spending semesters in college. I was also as well was traveling to different business conventions, all the while still beginning to serve and to volunteer and go to church, and as well work on my faith walk and who I was at my core, aligning myself with God. And she was doing a similar thing.
The same thing.
The same thing. Yeah. And I'll say this, that we were, and I'm not talking about a job wise, right? But we were working. Yeah. We were working. We were becoming. Yeah. Yeah. So the cool thing is that when you ask me like, what was it that prepared? When did I know? It was when God said it. But the thing about it is I met you in the air. Yeah. We met each other in the air. Yeah. We met in the air. Yeah. Like we didn't meet at the bottom where we're struggling, where we're this. We met walking in purpose in the air.
We met in the air. However, we could only fly from obedience.
Yeah, but that's how we met in the air though, by walking in obedience. Yeah. That's how we met in the air. So it wasn't like my higher self and her higher self was friends.
No.
Not our lower self. No. My higher self and your higher self was friends.
Yeah.
Our lower selves wasn't friends.
Yeah.
You know, like it wasn't the lower selves that were connecting.
No.
It was our higher selves that were connecting.
Because our lower selves wouldn't be friends. We were two completely different people in those aspects. Like the things that we relate on now and the things that we align on now and we come into agreement with now did not exist in our previous versions of ourselves.
And some people, and that's the thing though, some people, just like how our lower selves wouldn't have hung out as far as what our lower selves, but our higher selves connected. For a lot of us, our lower selves will connect, but our higher selves wouldn't.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people I related to that I was friends with or she was friends with, we were friends when we were our lower selves, but when we become our higher selves, we were no longer friends. We could no longer relate to each other. We could no longer vibe with each other.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of us are trying to find our tribe while still being our lower selves.
Yeah.
And there's something that I say all the time. I say, the better you will know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it will. And it's really because it's like you are in tune. Like right now, the Pink Garden, we're reading Balance, right? By Ray Roberts. And in chapter 1, out the gate, he talks about soul awareness versus self-awareness.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we had a level of soul awareness because your soul awareness is when like God is talking to you and you are able to hear him clearly.
Yeah.
Right. Your spirit is, you know, when you're kind of pricked to do something, but you may not necessarily move off of it. You're like, okay, like I know that there's something there, but I don't know what to do with it. But when you're like, you know, that old school gospel song says like, my soul says yes. You have no choice.
Yeah.
Or when it says I am sold out, my mind is made up, like that. When God talks to you, you move. He said God might not give you the A or the B. He's not gonna give you the A or the Z. He's just gonna give you the A, right? But if your soul is responsive to something, you don't have to know all the answers.
And you know, I want to say this too, just for the men. I want to just talk to the men really quick for a second, fellas. I don't care how macho we feel we are. I don't care however much ego we walk in. I don't care how much heartbreak we walk in. I don't care how much stoic we walk in. I don't care how much charisma we walk in. I don't care how much money we walk in. I don't care how much swag we walk in. I don't care how much attraction we walk in. I want to make something clear. We are always our lower selves until we submit to God to become our higher self.
Yeah.
We are always our lower self until we submit to God to become our higher self.
Yeah.
So no matter how much of that guy we think that we are, the guy that made us is the one that knows the highest level of guy that we can become. And as long as we ignore that relationship or downplay that relationship, there will always be a lower level of that guy that we're living in. And have you ever seen anybody that will post money online and then they got like a 20, a 5, a couple ones, maybe a couple 50s, maybe 300s, and all in total is maybe like $523 or $724, and they holding it up like this, like it's so much money, and then looking at it be like, oh, they look silly. That's how silly we look when we're acting like we have so much bravado, when really to become the greatest version of us takes completely different work.
Yeah.
Takes a lot more submission, takes a lot more humility, takes a lot more heartbreak, takes a lot more healing.
What's the one thing that you always say? I'm sorry to cut you off. If a man does not submit to something higher than himself, he'll always reference to the one thing that he knows, and that's himself, which is unreliable.
If you never give a man something higher than, something more important than his emotions, he'll always revert back to what he's used to.
That's so
If you
good.
don't give a man something greater than his emotions, he'll always revert back to what he's used to. And here's the things, fellas, what are we used to? Being boys, things that we did as boys. And it's not saying that, oh, we got to throw away everything we did when we were younger, things like that. We're talking about principles though. And fellas, I know for sure that there's this thing inside of us that we feel like we're going to be good one way or another. But the truth is that what is good when great exists?
Yeah.
What is good when great exists?
Yeah.
What
yeah.
is a lot when abundance is available?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to touch on that with the fellas
That's
really
so
quick.
good. And, you know, when you talk about submission, like when you really relinquish yourself to God and submit to God, for those of you who want to be husbands and for those of you who want to be wives, that is the first practice of submission, is relinquishing everything to God.
But you got to want it.
You have to want it. And it's not easy, right? But when your soul desires God, not your spirit, not your mind, right? Not your personality. I'm one with the universe. No, like your soul. So much so that you will lay down your own plan to submit to his.
Yeah. You know, literally lay down your plan.
I don't know if y'all heard me, but I had a plan. December 15th of 2016, 15, I was supposed to move to Chicago.
Yeah.
I was supposed to move to Chicago. However, during this season, when I was sold out to God, God told me, you cannot leave. You have unfinished business.
Imagine God telling her that, giving her that impression,
Yeah.
but her not being aligned or connected or sensitive enough to be able to hear him.
Yeah. But
we wouldn't be here before you today.
No.
So that idea of laying down like yourself and laying down your own desires, and it's like, God, laying down your desires is this example. I feel like eating Chick-fil-A, but I'm going to cook at home and make something. I'm going to make baked chicken and vegetables at home, right? The desire is for Chick-fil-A. The discipline is for the home cooked meal, right? It's
not always that simple either.
Have to want. You don't have to want the actual process, right? You just have to desire the results. You have to you have to want the results more than you care about the process, right? And a lot of times you got to care about the results more than you care about the product, right? Because a lot of healthy things that you have me eating, I don't want to eat, but I want the result of healthiness.
Right.
And so when we say that you have to want it, you have to want God's result for you. You have to want the best for you. And for you to want the best, you have to know where the best is. And he has the best for us because he created us. He's the manufacturer. So that's why I say that you have to want it, because a lot of times we can say that like, oh, I want, a lot of times we want our thing to work out. We want our thing to be the best for us.
And that's true. And what he gave was a very practical example. However, God isn't always practical, right? Because his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. His ways are higher than our ways.
True.
And so in that instance, it's like, okay, like I want or I desire Chick-fil-A, but instead I'm going to go home and I'm going to eat these baked chicken and these vegetables. But, you know, take what I just said, for example, God, my professors, my associates, my friends, they're like, I've watched you take this 2-year plan and now you're telling me that you're not going. Well, why aren't you going? And I'm like, well, I know that I'm just going to try God at his word. He said that his plans for me are to prosper me, right? And he has a plan prepared before me. So I'm going to try him at his word. And so that's what I did. And where did I find the comfort in that? One, the desire that you just referenced. But I was also I sold out to it. SOULED. I sold out to it.
Sold out.
And did I know what was going to come after that? No, but I knew that I was in alignment. I knew that he told me to do something. And so therefore I said, okay, God, you have my full attention.
Yeah.
You have my full submission. He said, forget your plan.
Yeah.
Forget your plan. And many times, like that Chick-fil-A example, well, I want Chick-fil-A, forget that plan.
Yeah. And again, you got, it says no discipline feels good in the moment.
Yeah.
No discipline, but let it finish its work and it will produce a good harvest.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the boundaries that I had or the preparation leading up to the proposal, listen, it was people that I had to let know, like, hey, look, I need you to understand. It was women I had to let know, like, I need you to understand. we're only friends, and there we won't be more than friends. And it was even this one girl that was like, she was like, I mean, I already know that. Why do you have to say that? No. Because you don't want me to say that. That's why I need to say that. It's important for me to say that, right? Clarity. I created clarity in these people, in these conversations with these people, in these different relationships with these people, in the midst of me building up these boundaries, leading up to the proposal. But if I hadn't did these different things, I don't think I would have made it there. If I wasn't being willing to build these different boundaries, I would never have made it there. You know,
That's so good.
but I want to touch on this too. There's this one lady. What would you say? There's this lady that says that she's she mentioned in a comment, she said that she's 44 years old, and she doesn't believe that she could do the friend to fiance thing. I'm assuming because she feels like she's too old and it's going to take too long.
The same thing I told my mom this morning. You know, like, shout out to my mom. I love you. You know, she's like, man, I kind of just wish I knew then at your age what you know now. And I said, Mom, hindsight is always 20/20. It's always shoulda, coulda, woulda. I said, but the last 20 years of your life, I said the next 20 years of your life can be better than the last 20 years of your life if you take the information that you know today, the information that you're researching today, the work that you are doing today, and you implement it. And that's the exact same thing that I would say to that commenter. You know, like, you don't know what the next 20 years of your life is going to look like. You don't know what the next 20 months, next 20 days. God can do anything.
Next 24 hours.
If you just submit.
Yeah.
But instead, we get so fixated on our plan, our thought, our expectation.
I want to know. We have this thing in our brains as humans where we have to know. We have to figure out.
It's
right?
like, you know, we make a plan. But when you submit, God establishes those steps.
Yeah.
And so that's the part where many of us are uncomfortable, because it's like, okay, God, well, your steps don't follow my map, so something has to be wrong.
Your steps, yeah, that's really good. Your steps don't follow my map. Yeah. Your steps don't align with my emotions.
And I think that's kind of just what she's giving more reverence to, is the fact that her timeline, her expectation, her desire is not following whatever life that she's experiencing right now. And so, you know, don't get me wrong, like, you know, my sister was talking about, you know, like this period of loneliness she referenced that you talked about in the last podcast. You know, when you have just gotten out of a relationship and you're like, God, like, what do I do with these emotions? What do I do with this space? Right? This space that used to be filled with another person, this time that used to be filled with another person. What do I do with this without finding, you know, seeking the same spirit in a different body? Like, what do I do with that? And the same thing, you know, it is submit that. You have to submit that.
Yeah.
You have to submit that and rediscover who you are, because you won't be the same after those experiences. Those change you, but even greater than that, God changes you.
My niece is 17 years old, and she said this morning, she put in our family group chat, she said, she put her notes, she watched the sermon, and she put the notes in the group chat, and she said, I realized I can't keep praying to God for guidance, but me not taking any steps myself to receive them.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Shout out to their niece.
Right.
So yeah.
So I, you know, say that in connection to with that lonely thing is that, you know, there's steps that you have to take. And if you're going through life waiting for a conclusion to come to your mind, waiting for a revelation, well,
meet me at the crossroads. That's the only time you're going to get it.
Here's the truth. Exactly. That's a fact. That's a super fact. And the crazy thing is that anytime, like, we can give you multiple different good people to listen to.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people that hate on all kind of, listen, people hating on TD Jakes right now. But listen, let me tell you, that man is full of the spirit, and anybody with the spirit can identify the spirit, and you know not to downplay that spirit, because that spirit ain't no joke, and you have to actually sacrifice and suffer for that spirit. So, you know, for that character and for that spirit. So anybody that can't identify that spirit, and that man is lacking it in themselves. And I don't just mean in him, and this is not any shot to anybody or even this protecting of him, but I want to make it clear is that when you work for something, the other people that's working for that thing can see that you working for that thing.
Yeah.
There's attributes inside of LeBron James that other basketball players can appreciate that people that don't play basketball could never appreciate, could never identify.
Yeah.
We can judge people from the sidelines all day long when we not in a sport.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or when we just practice leisurely in it.
Yeah.
But for the people that really do the thing, for you nurses out there, you nurses, when there's somebody else that's not a good nurse.
Yeah.
You teachers out there, when there's somebody out there that's not a good teacher.
Yeah.
So when you really, when you're really sacrificing for that spirit and that character of God to live inside of you, when somebody else has it or when somebody else doesn't.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about from a judgmental place. I'm talking about from an identity place, spirit to spirit, not from, oh, they do this or they don't do that. They do this, they don't do that.
And that's what hang people up, right? Because people forget that, yes, we are still people, right? And so sin is within us.
Yeah.
Like, it's innate. You don't have to be taught that. It is within us.
Yeah.
And what we don't realize is that many of us, we partner with opportunities to sin because it's already in us.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to be careful of what you listen to, what you watch, who you surround yourself by, right? Because you just may think that, oh, well, like, this is what it's always been, and so that's what it's always going to be. However, when he says create in me a new heart, create in me the right spirit, I want to be right. You're not always going to get it right, but where are you being fed?
Yeah.
How are you cultivating the experience, the intentionality, the focus of staying right? Because we're going to fail.
Yeah.
We're going to fail. And I think, people, that's why people deal with a lot of church hurt, because it's like you have this unrealistic expectation. You forget that they are still people. God extends grace to us daily.
Yeah, we all have, been to that place.
Yeah.
And there's this example where I actually even told my homie, and many people have said it before, is that, it would be silly to go to a hospital and judge them for being sick. It would be silly. Yeah. Why are people coming? Why do people go to church if they're not, if they're supposed to be perfect? You know what I mean? Like,
you walk in, the first thing you're doing is, why?
You're crazy.
They do.
No. That's fact. You used to do that too.
You used to do it too. The lies you tell.
Stop the cap.
You stop the cap.
When?
I don't know, because I just knew you in the middle of your walk.
Never worry. See, y'all see what that was? That was an assumption. You see, that's what we like to do. We like to
Did you not just cast an assumption on me?
No, I've lived that with you.
Anyway. You're funny.
But no. On the real though, now I do get it. Don't get me wrong. Like, for all the people that be like, all right, but there's some people that be acting like they better than what they do. All right, I feel y'all on that, because some people be acting like that they're further along in their walk than what they are, and they be lying, and we feel some kind of way because they be lying, for sure. So I'm with y'all on that. Yeah. But as far as other resources with getting wisdom, like, there's just so, like, when we were going through different challenging times, I used to Google things. I used to YouTube different things. Like, I used to YouTube different phrases and what does God say about, what does scripture say about, what does, and then listen to these messages on it and get more wisdom and understanding. And that's what, we have to do to get greater understanding. So a great person to listen to, Michael Todd, Stephen Furtick, the list just goes on and on and on. And I only say these things to say is that in anything that you do, in everything that you do, you take the fish and leave the bones. That means take what applies and let the rest fly, right? But if you don't dig, you won't find. Yeah.
And that just brings it all back to the preparation, right? Like, in order to prepare yourself for somebody else, you got to prepare yourself for you.
Yeah.
Because you can't be, I'm no good, especially women. Y'all know. Like, we are not, some days we just not good for ourselves. Like, and you know what I'm saying? And that's just the truth. And that's why community is so important, because, like, I need, and I appreciate you for this, because you do it in such a loving manner. Like, you call me out, like, and not in a bad way, but it's like, yo, this is not you. Like, something got a hold of you right now. You're giving into your insecurities. You're giving into your doubts. You're giving into the lies, because the only thing that Satan comes to do is kill, steal, and destroy.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, and he don't got to work hard, because us as women, we will do that ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. But in order for me to become the perfect helper, right, in order for you to become the perfect provider, the perfect leader, insert however it is you want to describe your, you know, your leadership role, I have to become that. But I can only become that if I know what it is.
Yeah.
And so I have to do the research, but then I can't just do the research. Guess what? I gotta apply it. I gotta implement it.
You gotta do the work. And, you know, the preparation is key, because it's like, you know,
excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
The reason that I believe that we were prepared for marriage the way that we were wasn't because we knew everything about marriage.
No, we knew nothing.
I believe it's because we were educated on in a different kind of marriage, and that's the marriage with God.
God, yes.
Right. So
yes.
Individually we were marrying God.
Yeah.
So it was we respected his word, we respected his character, and he respects us and loves us first.
Yeah.
You know, so anything that we do is a response to his love.
My
right.
response.
And you know, it's like one of these things where when a single woman complain, I'll put it like this. The reason why dating isn't necessarily preparation is because a single woman's complaints is different than a married woman's complaints.
Mm-hmm.
They don't complain about the same things.
They don't. And
right?
That's why,
their struggles aren't the same things.
And that's why for those of you who are engaged, right, even though you're not married yet, you can't go to your single friends for advice. Find you a married woman.
For sure. And in a single husband, a single man complaints isn't the same as a husband's complaints, right? A boyfriend's complaints isn't the same as a husband's complaints. Yeah. A girlfriend complaints isn't the same as a wife's complaints.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a completely different entity, because one is disposable. Mm-hmm. You know, mm-hmm. The other one, you know, I'm going to be honest. Listen, we've all been through heartbreaks in the boyfriend and girlfriend sense, but that marital is damaging.
Mm-hmm. It's
like
lethal.
I'm talking about in reality.
But what else do what else?
And the boyfriend and girlfriend, it is the attachment that we allowed ourselves to get to, right? That hurts when we tear it apart. Those failed expectations. In marriage, you're actually literally becoming one, per Jesus, per spirit, per God, per scripture. You become one. Your identity, your livelihood, everything becomes one. Mm-hmm. And that tear is a real tear when those two separate. Mm-hmm. I haven't experienced, obviously, the divorce, but I've experienced that kind of hurt, and then I've experienced us not being on the same path. And it is both hurt, but it is a completely different world of discontentment, hurt, and damage when the marriage isn't going as it should versus the relationship isn't going as it should.
So imagine how God feels. Right? If we know in the humanistic realm how it feels to be betrayed, how it feels to be disappointed, right, by the person that you're supposed to be in agreement with. Yeah. Imagine how God feels. And we treat him this way daily, knowingly and unknowingly. Yeah. And he still extends grace. He still extends forgiveness. Yeah. Just imagine.
Yeah. No, definitely. But that's why the key is to get that relationship working first, because if that relationship isn't working first, then there's no way for us to give the product of that to each other, which is grace, which is love, which is healing, right? So the preparation was within my marriage with God. And how did I know? Obviously I was able to see your preparation in your marriage with God, but there was other people that was preparing as well. It just simply came down to obedience. Yeah. I'm just going to be real. Like when we got married, the thing that was said the most when we first got engaged was, this is bigger than love, right? This is bigger than love. And what we got work to do. We have work to do. We have work to do. That was like the sentiment, because we didn't get married from a euphoric place.
No,
we
not
got
even from a place of love, from a place of work.
From, and we don't mean work like, oh, let's just get things done.
No.
What we mean is by a place of purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose. We got married from a place of spiritual purpose.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
So when it was like, how did you know? It was because, one, that part was shut off. I wasn't just looking, right? I didn't have my radar on, right? I didn't boop, 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 boop. Let me see. Was I able to identify the different qualities of different women? Of course, right? I'm not going to act like I was just in lollygag land, no, because then I couldn't create boundaries, right? You can't protect something that you're unaware of, like, right? You gotta be aware of the perimeter that you're protecting, right? No cameras on the perimeter, no protection, no surveillance, no protection, right? So I was paying attention to how different people act or reacted when it came to these different parameters. And some people, it repelled some people, and for some people, they learned from the infrastructure and started building more of their own boundaries, in similar fashion.
Yeah.
But it was really just obedience. It was obedience. And that's the beautiful thing, is that God doesn't give bad gifts. And if he can direct you in every other area, Lord, what job? God, what's my purpose? What's this? What's that? You don't think that he's going to do it with the person that you're supposed to spend the rest of your life with, the person that you're supposed to create a legacy with, the person that you're supposed to build a family with? He's going to let you know that.
Yeah.
He's going to let you know that. So again, for the lady that's 44 years old, that mentioned that she feels like, oh, it might be too late. I want to say this in a loving way, is like, well, you wasn't married when you were 43. You wasn't married when you were 42. There's no guarantee that you're going to be married when you're 45. This idea that, oh, I can't do that because I'm older and I ain't got time to waste, is a lie that we tell ourselves as well, because doing it the previous way that you've done it has taken this long, right? Has taken this long. But the beautiful thing is, the only thing that God wants to know is, will you trust him? That's the only thing with any of us. Belief. Faith is belief. And belief is trust. And all he wants to know is that, will you trust me to give this to you? Because if you trust me that I gave this to you, you will come to me on how to upkeep it. But if you don't know where it came from, if I get a laptop and can't identify it's an Apple, I don't go take it to Apple Care, right? To get it fixed, to help me out with it, or to look up how to do this on a Mac, right? When you know where it comes from, you know who to go to find out how to maintain it.
We don't know her story, so we don't know if she was married and, potentially divorced. We don't know any of that. So if that was the case, then just know that God will hear your heart, will provide restoration. And if it wasn't, then you still have the opportunity to get what it is that you desire out of life. And at the end of it all, I want to remind you all that none of us deserve any of this.
Yeah.
Right. So many of us have like this sense of entitlement, like, well, I deserve, I need, I should, but many of us have not become that person. God is not going to give you what you have not prepared for. God is not going to give you what you cannot, what will cause damage to you. Right. So I encourage all of you to take this approach with humility. Like, take some time to really look at yourself and say, okay, first of all, who am I?
Yeah.
What am I? And then if somebody were to ask me today, what am I bringing to the table? What do I have to offer?
Yeah.
Right. And if you have not established those boundaries for yourself, right, don't freely give yourself away. Nobody deserves that.
Yeah.
Nobody deserves that. I remember, and I can't remember where I heard it or where I read it from, but every time you engage, you are establishing a covenant with that person, right? And so many of you, when you do get to that day where you become married, you're not just marrying that one person, you bring in all the other people that you've ever, had an encounter with.
Yeah.
So we encourage you to establish those boundaries because in the becoming, you will become.
Yeah.
In the becoming, you will become. And
and regardless of whether you were previously married or not previously married, whatever that was, you spent all this time doing that thing.
Try him at his word. Try something different.
Try something different.
Try something different.
Try something different, you know, because God has a way of, and we're recipients of this. God has a way of doing something in a moment.
All of a sudden.
All of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's gonna come all of a sudden.
I feel it coming.
All of it sudden. I feel it coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is. The blessings are gonna, we always have stumbled into our blessings.
Always.
We have always stumbled. We've stumbled into each other in the midst of just character development by way of his word.
And being obedient. Even the podcast. Like, y'all, we stumbled into this. Like, you know, y'all will hear about that later.
By character development by way of his word.
Yeah, yeah.
That's literally how we stumbled into any and everything. By character development by way of his word.
Yeah.
Simply put.
Simply put.
Simply put.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was good, my love.
Yeah, they're probably like, oh my God, they just jump right in on this one. They just start boom, 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 boom. But here's the beautiful thing, y'all. This is a journey. And if you're looking for everything at one time, that's not what this is, because we didn't get it all at once. So if you're looking for every episode to be like, okay, give us this exact plan. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that's not how, that's advice.
Nope.
Okay. What we're here to do is share our story and the wisdom.
And the work is continual, y'all. We're still doing the work. We're now sharing from a place of what we did while we're still learning, right? And while we're still executing and while we're still becoming, right? Because evolution is continual. So the versions of us that, you know, you see today, 10 days from now, 10 months from now, 10 weeks from now will be completely different.
You're going to watch us continue to grow inside and out. You know what I mean? With inside and out. But we're here to offer wisdom. It's not, you might pick up different pieces of advice, but it's really the wisdom behind it that we want to share. Yeah. It's the wisdom behind it. It's not about, it's you pick up the wisdom, grab the gems throughout the conversation. Yeah. That's the point. Throughout the stories that we share, because this is the real thing that really built us. That really built us. Yeah. So, you know, we hope that this empowers you, beautiful people. And we're here, and we hope that you guys engage more in the comments. Please
do. We love to read them. We love to read them. Like the commenting, the liking, the subscribing, the sharing. We appreciate all of it. And we love the feedback. We love to hear your thoughts and your challenges and what you're learning throughout it, if anything. So.
Yeah, join the conversation. And there's no topic that we will ever touch on that we're not going to expound on more and more as we go on. Yeah. Right? Just because we go on in the story, it's the same principles just get brought up again. Yeah. So whatever you didn't get in the last episode or this episode, the topics are going to come up again. Yeah. You know, and more, and we're going to go deeper into it. So,
and if you don't know, if you haven't seen in our Patreon community, like, we do have a tier where if you want direct engagement, like I know a lot of you have, like, I need advice, I have questions, we are available in that realm. So check it out if you haven't seen it.
Yes, please. It's in the caption, you guys. Yeah. At least click the link in the caption where it says become a Patreon. Yeah. And just become a Patreon. But here's the thing, a Patreon. But here's the thing, just read over the different tiers and see which one might fit you, because there's so much more that we can do together, and we all need healthy community, and that's why we exist. Yeah. So I love you, beautiful.
I love you, handsome.
And we love y'all. Peace.